is the
Uh,
beautiful, beautiful James. Now, I don't know how many of you know James, but we were laughing this morning. The last time I heard him, saw him present, we were in a tent in the UK in 2019, July, before the world went to
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
And we were laughing because the event organisers started everyone drinking at 2 o'clock, and the bar was in your tent, so you had a lot of
Yeah,
fun presenting over drinking patrons. Now,
yeah.
as James talks today, I'm going to share with you. He recently released his 2 books to be crowdsourced by you all. And if you haven't had the opportunity to read Talent Chooses You, and the other one was, I have to look at my notes,
That's
James,
it's all right. It's all right.
the employment branding handbook. So I'm going to put those in the links today for all of you to go and crowdsource. James, it calls himself an employment branding nerd, but I absolutely and utterly think he's one of the cleverest people I know. So I'm going to hand over to you, my love, and leave it to you.
I am not going to be able to live up to that, but we're going to see what we can do here. Thanks, Andrea. Can everybody, let me double check. Can everybody see the slide? Good. Okay, good. We're going to kick it off. So we're all talking about employer brand, aren't we? We've been talking about it for the last couple of years. It's been talking more and more. Your magazines, your blog posts, your podcasts are talking about it more and more. It is somehow this secret magic voodoo of how do you make your recruiting better. It's the pixie dust you sprinkle on all your job postings to make magically people show up, I guess, or something. I don't know. The question I don't think we do a great job asking, though, is what does employer brand want? What is the purpose for this idea, this concept? Yes, it's 30 years old. Yes, it was invented in Britain. But let's be fair, what we know of and we are going to know of as employer brand is a very new idea. So what does it want? How do we use it? How do we wrangle with it? How do we wrestle with it to get the most out of it and get what we need? So I'm going to test. Can I move slides here? Okay, here we go. Boom. So I'm not going to be subtle anymore. I've done with subtleties. I'm done being gentle. I'm done being nice about this. There's going to be a tough love aspect to this. I assure you, there will be parts of this that will make you uncomfortable. It might sting a little, but it's through that gentle pain, that tough love, that we're all going to grow and get better. We're all going to see the value and the potential of what employer brand can do. So this is me. That is what I looked like before we locked down. I am not that svelte anymore. I mean, look at that guy. That guy's thin. Good gravy. Who is that guy? Anyway, if you use your cameras and you take a picture of the QR code, it jumps you straight to my newsletter, but I also have a book. It's free. It's open source. Just go to employerbrandbook.com. All the books I write are there. They're there for you to mark up, to ask questions, to copy and paste, to do with it what you will. It's literally in a Google Doc. Go nuts. And that is always an invitation for someone to go, oh, I'm just going to put my name on this. Yeah, I actually will delete your comments if they're not useful. But otherwise, please add comments. Please use it. Please read it. Please share it. I think it's a useful way to kind of get the conversation wherever you are kind of moving forward. That said, let's dive into the good stuff. Now, I used to joke that anybody who talked about employer brand, who didn't define employer brand, was really just looking to grab you by the ankles and shake till all the change fell out of your pockets. This is the reason why certain websites who remain nameless will tell you that they are the solution to employer brand. That's interesting. I didn't realize employer brands had solutions. I didn't realize there was a platform. We just click, we bought, and suddenly our employer brand was better. But that's what we've been sold for like the last 10 years. So we have to start by just defining what is this idea. If you ask 10 employer brand professionals what employer brand is, you're going to get 12 answers. So let's get it down here. Put simply, the common definition of employer brand is simply what an individual, a single human being thinks it's like to work at your company. And that perception is based on touch points and experiences. And let's be clear, a lot of those touch points and experiences happened well before the recruiter reached out or found you on LinkedIn or whatever it was that caused that conversation to happen, right? These are powerful touch points. For example, your brand new CEO, and they're supposed to be some sort of amazing kind of rainmaker or some sort of amazing kind of visionary. Great for your employer brand. Turns out that he's going to sexually harass somebody in the office. Bad for your employer brand. Your brand shows up amazing product. Good for your employer brand. They use it and they don't like it. Bad for your employer brand. Customer service. That could go either way. Everything your company does, from the product selection to the leadership, to what's in the news, to PR, to customer service, to your recruiters, are the touch points and experiences that build that perception. When I think of any company, this is what I think about when I think what it's like to work there. What do I know about it? Have I used the product? Have I interacted with anybody who works there? Were they a jerk or were they amazing? What's the recruiter like? Are they spammy or are they really trying to build a relationship? All those things build the employer brand. Okay, so there's your baseline. That's a fair, common definition of employer brand. And I have it on good authority that someone actually quoted that definition, which is not mine. Someone assumed it was mine. It's not. It's the universe's, I guess. And when you know that that's what employer brand is all about, very quickly you realize how complicated it is, right? When I told you about all those experiences that shape the employer brand, you start to realize that it's very messy. And so anybody who's an employer brand or starting to as an employer brand practitioner starts in this model. They start with tactics. What do I write? What do I say? What do I build? How do I edit that photo? How do I make post something on LinkedIn? How do I make a video? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? This is the tactical stuff, how to build the stuff that shapes the perception of what people might think it's like to work there. And when you get good at those tactics, not necessarily all of them, but when you start to get good at tactics, you start to realize there's this next level. And that next level is strategy. It's not about can you build the stuff, but should you build the stuff? If you should, when? How do you make that work? How do you maximize these things you're working on? How do you maximize the value of these things you're building? That's the second level. And when you get good at that, you start to realize there's a third level, and that's politics. So if you are trying to shape the brand and the perception of an entire company, you can't do it by yourself. You have to make friends. You have to get other people involved. You need to get in resources and friendly help and people who are willing to be advocates and share and join in your little weird party and get it going and keep it going. That's the politics stuff. How do you share credit? How do you tap into their resources? How do you maximize these tactics and strategies that you've built? Okay. This is complicated stuff, no question. It's not impossible. It's not rocket science, but still, it's messy. It's very much like trying to draw a running cat, right? You're just never going to get precisely right. So it's very, very higgledy-piggledy, which is a technical term. So what? Like any good piece of modern art, what's it for? What's the value of this employer brand? Why do we care? Why does it matter? And I think that actually is the most interesting question we can ask. And that what does we want the employer brand to do? Great. The employer brand is what that perception is. But so what? Where do we take that? What direction do we push that in? And so I want to come back to this idea of employer brand. Instead of talking about its definition, I want to talk about its purpose, its reason for being. And its purpose is to create desire. And yes, that word desire is bold and red and a different font on purpose. It's to create desire for a role or for our company amongst the target audiences, amongst the people we actually wanted to hire. Now, the word desire is kind of offset because it's not a word we use often. Not in employer brand, not in recruiting, not in sourcing. When's the last time you used desire as a word to describe what you're trying to do, to create that desire? No, usually recruiting feels very much like Oliver. We're begging, please, sir, can you apply for a job? That is a really hard way to go through life. And the truth is, creating desire is what we should be aiming for. And when I say desire, I mean like Taylor Swift tickets, the new iPhone, Kanye's new sneaker, I guess. I don't know. I'm old. I can't tell you what people are waiting in line for. But that's really the idea. That's desire. You want that product. You want those tickets. You want those sneakers. So much so, you're willing to wait outside for hours for that window to open to buy those things. That's desire. Taylor Swift doesn't have to walk around saying, would you please buy some tickets? She shows up on a TV show saying, hey, we're doing a concert in 3 months, buy a ticket, and the line forms to the left. And they do. Why? Because they want that thing. Now, desire, aside from being a cool and semi-scary word, isn't an accident. How do you create desire, and how desire is formed inside your target audience, the people you want to hire, is a hard job. It's a complicated job. And that's what I want to start to unpack a little bit of, okay? Because desire isn't just general positivity. It's not just, I kind of like that thing. I have no objections to that thing. Personally, I have zero objections to Taylor Swift. I'm sure she's a lovely human being, I guess. What do I know? I've never met her. But do I desire a ticket or a show or an album or a song of Taylor Swift's? No. General positivity doesn't cut it. What cuts it, what matters, is specificity, is clarity. When you say you want that thing, you're not saying I want a ticket, you're saying I want Taylor Swift tickets, this date, third row, middle, and if I get a VIP backstage pass, I want that too. That's clarity. That's specificity. You want exactly that. You don't want someone who wants a job. They'll apply anywhere. They don't care what company it is. They just want a job. No, you want someone who wants this job. Someone who does the research on the company, does the research on the brand, who focuses and thinks about what that job might really look like and feel like and what value they can bring to it. Isn't that the candidate you want to talk to? Isn't that the candidate, the interview experience you want to have? Or do you just want people to say, yeah, I'll take that job, I guess? No. You want desire, and that desire comes from clarity. I think one of the biggest weaknesses of employer brand, I guess is the right word, is that we've all started, and I say all of us in a broadest brush possible, so I apologize if I'm misconstruing, but generally employer branders, we seem to focus on making things pleasant, making things positive, making a white glove candidate experience, making everything, getting rid of all the negative. And when we do that, we get really, really boring, right? I mean, when's the last time you had a great meal and you went, that was pretty generally positive? No. You had an amazing, whatever the heck that thing was. You can have a generally positive meal almost anywhere. You go to McDonald's, for goodness sake, and get a generally positive meal, but you're not going to remember it. It's about specificity. It's about, I want this very unusual food. I want this very specific job. I want this very specific company to work. I want to connect to that specific logo, right? Now that desire, that specificity occurs when you think in kind of two buckets. The first is objective value. What is the value you're offering this candidate? And from an objective standpoint, what you're talking about is salary, bonus, benefits, start date, everything in an offer letter. Everything you write down in an offer letter is objectively true. It's the objective value. And how do we know it's objective? It's because when you say, I'm going to hire you for $40,000, and everybody says yes, and you pay them $35,000, that's not a miscommunication. That's called a felony. That's felony fraud, my friends. It's objective. When we said 40 or 80 or 100 and whatever that number was, we mean exactly this. In fact, that's probably why everybody gets hung up on salary. Yeah, everybody likes money. I love money. You love money. Everybody wants money as much as you can get. But we talk about it almost exclusively. And the reason is because the money is the only piece of information in the entire interview process that's not complete and total bollocks. Yeah, I said it. Think of all the wonderful things you say to a candidate. We're caring, we're considerate, we've got a great culture. What the heck is a great culture? What does that even mean? When you say you're innovative, what does that mean? What does innovation mean to you? Because it may not mean the same to me. Those are subjective values. I have a subjective perspective on what that value means, right? I'm sure Goldman Sachs, a huge hedge fund here in the US who was in the news last month for working their junior analysts about 100 to 120 hours a week. First off, who knew that there was 120 hours in a week? But there you go. And they were complaining, we're working us to death. And the truth is, every single person who took that job knew exactly what this job was. It was very specific. They knew what the hours were. And they had a reason for working those hours. Why? Because if you work at Goldman Sachs for a couple of years, you're never going to fly coach again. You're going to be a millionaire by the time you're 32. You're going to be effectively independently wealthy by the time you're 40. The goal, the value, the exchange with Goldman Sachs is you give us your 20s and work yourself to a nub, and in exchange, you will never have to worry about money ever again. Cool? Line forms to the left. And it does. Subjective value is actually more important than the objective value. We want to work in a place that's innovative, that gives us autonomy, that gives us freedom and flexibility, that makes us feel proud to work there. But those are all subjective values. When the recruiter says, come to work here, you're going to be proud to work here, you can't tell a candidate that. You can't tell me that I'm going to be proud. How dare you? Such crap spin, right? But what you can say is, this is the salary, this is the title, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the difference between subjective and objective, because objectively, the subjective values are the things we actually want more. Almost all of us know someone who took a job with less objective value, but with far higher subjective value. Like teachers, anybody who works in nonprofit, anybody who joined the military. They chose against a subjective value and they chose against an objective value. People want the stuff in the subjective category far more than the objective category. But there's a trick. You can't just say you're innovative, that you're going to make, you're going to save the world, that you're going to do X and Y and Z, that these subjective values are what they are. Because subjective values are subjective. So in order to claim and stand on those subjective values, you really got to dig. You really have to prove it. You really have to validate it. You have to truly reveal and prove those subjective values. You care you're innovative. I want to see the innovation in your ATS. I want to see the innovation in how you collect resumes. I want to see the innovation in how you schedule the resumes. I want to see the innovation everywhere. If I don't see it, guess what? You're not innovative. If you were, you'd be innovative everywhere, right? So that subjective value, while incredibly powerful, incredibly motivating, incredibly useful, is really hard to prove. Now, let's take a step back. Because ultimately, what we're really talking about here is this promise, because every brand is a promise. And the promise is, what is it going to be like to work here? What should you expect? Should you expect a smooth onboarding, or should you expect kind of a, here's your laptop, best of luck, which is fine. If I know it's coming, if I know what to expect. It's a game of expectations, right? If I know that it's going to be a 40-hour work week and at 5 o'clock I can turn my brain off and never think about work ever again, that's what I can expect. If I know I can expect an 100 to 120-hour work week, okay, I know what I'm choosing. I know what to expect. And that's where those objective and subjective values kind of connect into, right? Because what happens is when you get real specific about what that promise is, about what someone should expect, when you get honest, and there's a terrifying word for many of you, right? When you get honest, you get honesty back. Many of you saw the give and the get conversation, I think it was yesterday, and that's kind of what they're talking about. You're attracting people and you're repelling people. And that doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen by saying, okay, everybody whose first name starts with a J, I want to attract you, and everybody else go away. And how do you do that? Well, I'm going to write it in the job posting on the job advert. If your name starts with a J, we really want you. Everybody else can go get the heck out of here. No. What you do is you get honest. I mean, really honest. Hey, this is why this job's going to suck. Hey, this is why this job is really hard. Hey, these are the kinds of people who will succeed, and these are the people who will not succeed. You get honest. Most job postings are so far away from honesty. It's shameful. But to be fair, you could say the same thing about the candidates. I mean, let's be fair. The modern recruiting process is this weird kabuki theater. I'm going to put my entire professional life on 2 pages, and I'm not going to tell the truth. I'm just going to put the really nice things. And you, as the recruiter, are going to try and poke behind it and look around behind it. I'm going to dance around it to make sure you can never look behind it. But that's okay, because your job posting is a technical document that says effectively nothing, and I'm trying to peek around it, and you're trying to just not talk about it too much, and we're both just lying to each other. What a great way to start a professional relationship. Honesty is important because ultimately honesty begets more honesty. When you get honest, the candidates are forced to get honest. When you say we care about this and this is what we reward and this is the kind of stuff we don't abide by, the candidate has to say, yeah, I want that. They can't pretend they weren't told. You told them. You were honest, so it forces them to be equally honest. It's magical. It's terrifying, but it's magical. Because ultimately, what employer brand is trying to make happen is this perfect match where the job and the brand and the person are in sync. They get it. They're all looking for the same things. They all want the same things. They understand what's ahead of them. They all have a complete and clear and clarity of thought around what's expected of them. That's what we're shooting for. Now, what happens is that completely gets rid of this idea that you have to collect 100 resumes for every application, that you have to collect all these applications, all these names, that you're trolling the sea of talent with a big old dragnet. That sucks, doesn't it? As recruiters, doesn't that just suck that you're just putting these jobs out in job boards willy-nilly, getting a tsunami or a trickle of information. And frankly, all these people are generally the same, saying most of the same things, and you can't tell who to hire. Well, again, honesty begets honesty. So that's kind of on what you put out in the world. But when you start to be honest about what you offer and what your brand promise is really about, good and bad, both of them, both sides are important. Recruiting is less about how do I get 100 people to show up or how do I get 100 resumes, really. They're not really people, they're just resumes. But instead, how do I find the one or two amazing, perfect fit, perfect culture add, value add people that I'm looking for? That's where we're trying to push things. It's not about employer brand as a means to collect resumes or to become the most popular employer brand, blah, 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 blah. That means nothing. Everybody's favorite phrase, we're a great place to work. You understand that's half a sentence, right? That's only half a thought. It's we're a great place to work for people who like snakes. I don't know. For people who like to work themselves to death but really want money. We're a great place to work if you don't mind destroying democracy, Facebook. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? I apologize. It's not about we're a great place to work for everybody because no place is great to work for everybody. But if you get specific and clear, then you can truly explain to whom you're a great place to work. And that means your funnel kind of goes away because it's not about stuffing resumes at the top and hoping somebody good falls out the bottom. It's about saying, I'm really focused on the one or two people I really, really want, and everybody else, yeah, thanks so much for applying. We'll talk to you later. So what employer brand wants is interesting to me anyway, and hopefully it's interesting to you because it boils down to a couple of simple points. First, it means building a message specifically for that one perfect person. I don't mean personas. I don't mean people with a certain set of skills. I mean the one great fit person. Who are you trying to hire? Because if you're trying to hire a white guy like me for a certain job, you're going to use a certain language. If you're trying to hire a black woman doing the same job, you're going to use different language. Don't pretend otherwise. And this isn't about, I don't know, vernacular. This is about what I, as a middle-aged white man, care about and what someone else who is a younger black woman might care about are going to be different. I don't think I should have to explain that to anybody. That should be clear as day. That means you don't write a message for everybody. You write a message for the one person you're looking for. Make them feel like you're connecting with them. And it's a process that's collaborative. The thing that I hate about hiring is that you accuse the candidate of lying. The candidate knows you're lying the whole time. And after 3 or 4 weeks of interviews, everybody hugs and joins the family. What? It's completely combative. It's completely confrontational, but it should be collaborative. We should be dancing, not fighting. And what recruiting should be doing is focusing on the marriage, not the process of dating. We all have those friends who are really good daters, like they're always on Tinder and Bumble and whatever, Grindr and whatever, and they're really good at getting lots of dates, but none of them ever get married. And then you look at a lot of tech stacks and you say, is this designed to help me get lots of dates or help me get married? And sadly, it's usually the former. Focus on the outcome. Focus on the one person you want, not collecting 100 resumes. Think long-term, not how do I get the butts and seats? What do I got to do to make a great hire happen? Because ultimately, when employer brand is done right, it's not just going to support talent acquisition. It will, no question. But what it really does is create a human face for the larger corporate brand. These are the kinds of people we hire. These are the kinds of people we are. This is the human face of the corporate brand. You're supporting the business, not talent acquisition. Because ultimately, what it all boils down to is this. Employer brand, what it wants is to destroy recruiting as we know it today. Yeah, that's terrifying. And welcome to the tough love portion of our show. Everything about recruiting these days, is there anybody who actually likes the process? Is it the recruiter? Because I know a lot of recruiters and none of them seem to like this process. The hiring managers don't like the process. The candidates don't like the process. Leadership doesn't like the process. And yet somehow it keeps going this way. It's broken, but we can't seem to fix it. Welcome to employer brand, the solution for those problems. Yeah, I know. And this is, as I'm finishing up, I know I've run over a little time here. When you see hiring differently, you don't just see talent acquisition differently. You don't just see the people differently. You don't just attract different people. You're actually seeing business as a whole different. You're going from transactional recruiting and hiring to relationship driven, understanding this is a long-term relationship, that this is a long-term process, that you're not hiring to put the butt in the seat. You're hiring someone who can be great for you today and tomorrow when the job's a little different, and the day after that when they get promoted to another team. You want someone who grows the entire business. And that's hard to do, but that's what employer brand wants. With that, does anybody have any questions? Fiona, you're 100% right. It is cheaper to have fewer candidates and take them through the process. The game of quality and quantity here is one we don't talk enough about, right? If I gave you, even if I gave you 100 great candidates, the time and effort it would take you to go through and screen them all and figure out which ones you wanted to talk to would mean you're forgetting or missing someone great. It's not just about quality. It's also making sure you focus your efforts on the people that matter, on the candidates that matter, the people who get what you're trying to do and want to do it with you.
James, I have a question. I popped it up a bit further on. So often employment branding people in TA have to have the marketing team involved in the process. Mm-hmm. And we're hopefully running a session in a couple of weeks around consumer and employment brand. But in your mind, do you think marketing want us to be less honest because they're protecting the consumer brand?
That is a really interesting approach. I will, and that kind of suggests that marketing is a little more spinny than I want to claim they are. I think we're all guilty of spin now and then, but let's pull back from that. I think the challenge is when you understand that it's a game of quality versus quantity, you are the only part of the business focusing on quality. Every other part of the business is focusing on more leads, more eyeballs, more shares of voice, more shares of wallet, more impressions, more clicks, more visits, more. They all want more. And in the search for more, the way you get more is to be less offensive, is to be safer, is to not scare anybody off. But as recruiters, our first job is to scare the living bejesus out of anybody who's not going to love this place. You all know the thing about your business and your job and your company that people love and people hate. Scare the people who are going to hate the stuff that they're going to hate there. Get them out the door. Get them away. Because in the end, if you've got a rec, you can only hire one person. If you're selling donuts and you sell 1 million donuts, you're getting a raise. If you're recruiting for one job and you get 1 million applicants, you should get fired. It's a quality game. And marketing doesn't get that. They're still figuring it out. Every kind of marketing, pharma marketing, B2B, B2C, big business, nonprofit, name any kind of marketing that is an employer brand. It's all about quantity. It's all about more. So here you are saying, yeah, I don't want 1 million resumes. I want 2 great people. You're talking in another language. They don't understand that. It's like talking to a fish and saying, what do you think about air? And the fish is like, what's air, right? They don't get it. So consequently, I think that's where the friction is. They don't look at the way look at the world the way we do. The other part we can add to that is we get to be the human face of this stuff. We get to, if you're a business that makes shoes, I don't know why I'm on shoes now. That's great. And they might be amazing shoes, but how many people know people who work at Nike? Right? You know Michael Jordan, you might know a sports star, you might know a celebrity, but you don't know the people who make it. But the more you like the people who make it, the more you like the product. And that's where we live, to talk about the people who work there, how they connect to purpose, how they connect to mission, how they connect to value, because it's supposed to directly attract more people of the same. But when marketing gets savvy to what you're doing, they should be stealing your stuff like crazy, because it's great material to say, yes, it's a great product. Look at the people who made it. Aren't they great too? It's just good marketing sense.
And Rebecca McDonald is saying here that one challenge we face is with diversity targets. The business is saying they want to see a range of people, but we've also got diversity targets that we are meeting, and jobs for humanity that we've set up here in Australia with the lovely Roy Balaudi, ex-Smart Recruiters. You know, we're actually actively going to work with businesses to help hiring managers understand why they should interview a person that's vision impaired or neurodivergent or just got out of jail. But all of a sudden, hiring managers want to see this range.
Yeah. And that's because hiring managers have been treated to deal with it like marketing. Get me the most options. And in so doing, you say a message that really appeals to no one in specifics, because it's supposed to appeal to everyone in general. And that's not possible, right? The music I listen to is not the music you listen to. The things I like, or the Netflix shows are not the same shows you like. We're all different. And if you break into demographics, if you break into life experience, the returning to work mom versus the person just released from prison versus the person in a wheelchair, or from the person with ocular issues versus anybody, they're all different and they want different things, but we err to this side of how do we get more? And so we get to that fuzzy, boring middle. If you want diversity, you have to be intentional about diversity. Now, I spent about a year at Universum. I'm not going to plug them too hard, but they do have data that makes really clear that if you, for example, you're trying to hire an engineer, this is more in the States than in Australia, but the data can correlate a bit. If you're trying to hire an engineer, the thing a Black male candidate doesn't care about is the day in the life video. Could not care less about that information. And yet it's what you see everywhere. Why? Because white dudes like it. Now, you didn't mean to talk to only white dudes. You didn't mean to exclude anybody. You did everything right. But by focusing on the middle, you focused on the most obvious and the most common, which sadly is not who you're trying to talk to. You want to hire a Black woman? Talk as a Black woman. Understand what Black women care about. Focus on them. You're trying to hire someone straight out of prison? Understand what they're focusing on and talk to them. Not people like them, to that person. Sorry, I haven't had much coffee. And Andrea, you're muted. There you go. There we go.
So trams in Melbourne, James, go past our office, and I have to keep turning myself off. So you don't.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But next year we will get you here and you will ride a tram with me. Look, in the interest of time, I have to finish that off. We're going to go on to to a presentation from Indeed. As soon as that's finished, we'll have a roundtable discussion, folks. I will make sure I put this, those things, I can't remember what they're called, in the follow-up stuff to go out later on this afternoon. So if you missed that today, I'll have all of James' resources in the email from you. As Marion has said, thank you, James. We just love your authenticity. And honestly, I just wish more people told it exactly like you do. I think the truth bombs are amazing. If you can hang around, I recognise it's dinner time. In 23 minutes, we'll be on a roundtable discussion. And if you're on table one, people will come and join you. If you can't, awesome. I've just gone American. Awesome. Thank you for your presentation. Rock
on, I guess is another, I don't know. I'm the fish asking about water.
Or, oh, God. All right, my love. So good to see you. And,
good to see you, Andrea. Thank you, everybody. I really had a blast. So glad you could be here.
All right, lovely. If you just turn your camera and mic off, and I'll be able to move to the next session. Thank you. Everyone, isn't he just the most fantastically wonderful person?